It's 8 a.m. from Fox 35. This is Good Day Orlando.
And it was the shock of a lifetime. A woman finding her dad online after thinking he was dead for 37 years. The dad and daughter joining us live for more on the reunion that was decades in the making. Pretty special story. We're going to share it with you. Well, coming up next, an online search really changed everything for one local family.
A father and daughter will join us live to talk about how they found out about each other after 37 years. Plus, David Martin. Well, imagine meeting a family that you never knew you had. That is exactly what happened to Krista Bryan. She sent off a swab of her DNA to Ancestry.com, and that led her to her father that she was raised to believe had died. 37 years later, they are reunited here in Orlando, and she has learned she has a bunch of new siblings, too, that she didn't know about. And this morning, they're joining us to tell us their story. Krista Bryan and her father, Andrew Baker. Thank you both so much for being here, Krista and Andrew. Nice to meet you both.
No problem.
So tell me how all of this got started. So you were curious about your ancestry. You were being raised by an aunt and uncle, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So when my mom had me, she had a nervous breakdown. I was kind of lived with aunts, uncles, different things back and forth with my mom. And then I moved in with my aunt and uncle. And by the age of 14, I kind of wanted to know. I had a dad that raised me in Sacramento, and he was Chinese. But he wasn't my real dad, and I kind of heard from cousins like, oh, okay, you know, this isn't your real dad. So I wanted to know what my nationality was, who my real father was. So I kind of went with questions like, who's my real dad, you know? So they sat me down and they told me, you know, okay, listen, your real dad is Mexican, and he passed away and he killed himself. And so I had an uncle who was in and out of prison, and so he told me that he met my real dad and family in prison, and that they asked about me. And so, like, it just kind of brought this, oh, okay.
You need to write a book, right? You need to write a book. And it's so complicated.
Yeah.
Okay, so you send in your DNA.
Yes.
And it comes back, and you learn, I'm not Mexican at all, right?
Yeah.
What did it say?
Yeah, it said I was African American, so I was really shocked. I had friends that encouraged me to just, like, find out what nationality you are. You know, I'm 37, I want to have kids, I want to know. And it said I was African American, and I'm like, what? Like, I was really shocked about that. So I couldn't believe, you know. So I tried to find out answers. You know, my mom, like I said, she had a nervous breakdown, and I could not get answers from anybody. So I just kind of sat on that, and I had friends that said, hey, you know, well, how do you feel about it? But I told them, how do I know this is real? Like, how do I know this is what I really am?
Right, you thought maybe it was the wrong information. So what led you to Andrew? How did you find him?
Okay, so basically, I had a friend that grabbed my phone, showed me Ancestry.com, and there's different relatives that have the same DNA as you, and they match you. There's like links, and so somebody on there was a second cousin that had a really, they had my DNA really high match. So I looked into that account holder because I couldn't contact that person, and I told him, hey, I'm just trying to find out my nationality. I just want to know, like, this would confirm if this is what I really am. Right. If there's somebody that knows of a daughter they had about, don't have, you know, somebody, you know, in Sacramento. So I never heard back from the person, but about 3 weeks later, I got an email through my Facebook Messenger, and it said, hey, the person you're looking for might be my husband's cousin. And I still had no clue what they were talking about. And I'm like, oh, I just really want to find out my nationality. They were like, well, if this is your father, then you're African American. And so I'm like, what? So, you know, then I'm like, okay, well, this is who I am. Here's my picture.
Right.
Like,
So how did you call him? Did you get a phone number?
So we actually, me and this person talked back and forth, and they sent me a picture of him 20 years ago. They said, my husband said I could send this picture of him, and I gave them my mom's name. They said, we're going to talk to him in the morning. We'll let you know what happened. So in the morning, they called me, and they're like, you know what, he knows your mom. And that's when just I felt like a ton of bricks hit me, and it just got so real, because it was still kind of like, And I ran to my mom, and I asked her, like, hey, is this my dad? And so first, she's like, oh, yeah, that's him. And so I'm like, and then she goes, and then how did he die? I'm like, he didn't die. He's alive.
Oh, my gosh. So, Andrew, tell me about that first encounter, the first time that you saw her, because I'm looking at the two of you on the couch, and I'm like, well, there's no denying you're her father. You look exactly alike.
Yeah. It was a Sunday afternoon. I got a phone call from my cousin who I hadn't talked to in like 2 years, and he said he had something to tell me about, and I knew it must have been serious. So he told me to go to a quiet place where I called him, and he said he was on Ancestry.com, and a woman called him and said she was a cousin. She was born in Sacramento, and she was born
1979.
1979, and her mother's name was Vicky. I said, well, I didn't know a Vicky I went to high school with, and so he sent me the pictures, and she looked a lot like my oldest daughter that was in Sacramento, and I saw the resemblance there, and I was just shocked. And
so you didn't even know that Vicky was pregnant. You didn't even.
Nothing like that.
Wow. So the first time you meet, was there just this instant connection?
Oh yeah. We're both Christians, and she's a strong Christian, and something I've always wanted in my family bring up. So yeah.
I was really shocked the first time that we talked on the phone, because once I talked to this woman, he called me 5 minutes later, and so I was just like, I mean, my brain could not function, or how should I say this, process what was really going on. Like, I could not believe this. Like, and I told him, I'm sorry, I'm so shocked. Like, my entire life I thought my dad passed away and killed himself. Like, oh my God. But the first thing I do remember him saying is, like, when I heard you were Christian, it really blessed me, because me and my wife were missionaries. And so I'm like, what? Because my mom's family, I had no similarities in that area at all. They thought I was kind of insane. I went from high school and I went working full-time ministry in a church, and that just was my passion. I just wanted more of that.
And now you know where it came from. It's in your DNA.
Exactly,
it's in your DNA. All right, so I wish we had more time. I could talk to you guys all day, but you felt such a close connection to your father that you've moved here to Orlando, right?
Yes. So once I actually met him in person, we got a DNA test, just to confirm everything. Of course we knew, but it was like 99.9 that he was my father. And I came up here. He wanted to fly me to Orlando, and I did Universal Studios, Disneyland, and I didn't have that upbringing growing up. I didn't have the blessing of a family, and I love his wife. His wife is just absolutely amazing, and I just felt like a puzzle. They were a puzzle. I was a missing piece of that puzzle.
I've always wanted 5 children. I only have 4, and my wife is too old to have another one. And then I've always said that's at number 5. And then I found out, and I told her, you're a blessing. I've always wanted 5 children, and she's the firstborn. I just found out about it.
It's such a beautiful story, Krista and Andrew. Thank you for sharing your story with us this morning, and I hope there are other stories out there like yours that can be blessed through a website. Isn't it? Technology is truly amazing.
I'm so blessed to give the story out, because there's a lot of people that have come to me for some reason or another. It touches their lives and it brings change to them. So I'm like, however it can be used. I'm so blessed right now. It's crazy.
You are. I'm so glad you're together. I'm so glad you're together. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being with us. Wow, Jamie King, top that.